With that, let's welcome in our panelist. Kent Strang joins us, Managing Director at Americans for Prosperity. John Thomas is here, Managing Director at Nestpoint. Welcome to you both. Kent, start us off. What'd you make of the Treasury Secretary's comments there? What's going to happen between the U.S. and China?
Well, look, I would love to see trade barriers go down to zero as a mechanism to drive economic growth, but I understand where the secretary is coming from. China is trying to monopolize the rare earth minerals market, and there are so many important implications of those rare earth minerals in our phones, in our modern technology, the military implications. And so President Trump has signaled that there's a long way for the tariffs to go into effect between now and November 1st. This is going to be an ongoing negotiation, and we're going to see how this one plays out in real time.
Yeah, as we are about 1 minute away from the ringing of the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, Susan G. Komen ringing the bell. The organization, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month as well. You see a lot of pink on your screen and a lot of green right now in futures. Before opening bell, though, I wanted to get your thoughts on the same topic, John, if I can, and just weighing in on maybe some of the things and the points and highlights that Kent made.
Well, he makes a good point. And look, President Trump, what he's doing by slapping back at China is he's telling China they can't take advantage of us any longer. That's what this entire fight has been about in the first place. It's that China has been taking advantage of the U.S. consumer, the U.S. market, both for their own national security benefit and their own economic benefit to the disadvantage of Americans. And what have we already seen? Trump's already getting results. Onshoring manufacturing from China to the U.S. is already coming. Manufacturing that can't come back to the U.S. has begun decoupling from China, going to other places like Vietnam and Malaysia. And as Kent said, rare earths are so hugely important, not just for our cell phones, but for our military applications. So I think Trump understands one thing. Xi only respects strength. And Trump is putting America in a strength position to negotiate here.
Yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't just those rare earth minerals that are so important, but apparently the Chinese buy up a lot of American soybeans. Mm-hmm. President Trump noting this on Truth Social as opening bell rings, writing just the other day, I believe China purposefully not buying our soybeans and causing difficulty for our soybean farmers is an economically hostile act. We are considering terminating business with China, having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade as retribution. As an example, we can easily produce cooking oil ourselves. We don't need to purchase it from China. How much stake in the marketplace does this really have, Kent?
Well, I can tell you this. I grew up on a farm. My dad farms corn and soybeans. And as an American farmer and a farm family, we know how important it is for the United States to lead the global market in soybean production. And so as we continue to see the moves that China is making and how the United States responds to that, we certainly have great products here in the United States that we should be able to export throughout the world.
Wanted to ask, too, really quickly before you go about the government shutdown as we are in day 16 in this moment. Senate not able to come to some sort of agreement here. A lot of this, really, it's over the Affordable Care Act subsidies and getting an agreement there. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, he weighed in on this exact topic. And here's what he said. He said that if this shutdown drags on, there will be, quote, painful job cuts to come in the future. How does this shutdown impact the jobs of federal workers and the economy in general? Again, we still don't really see any daylight between both Democrats and Republicans on this one here, John.
Sean, this is really actually quite sad because it is a Schumer shutdown, as President Trump has said. The Democrats, because they have such Trump derangement syndrome, and in some cases, like Schumer, are afraid from being primaried from the left by the likes of AOC, refuse to meet President Trump and the Republicans to vote to reopen the government. And there are real world consequences to it. Not just most federal workers are getting laid off or furloughed, but the military isn't getting paid. But look, President Trump, I got to give him credit. He's figured out how to instruct Secretary Hegseth to reorchestrate budget to keep our military service members paid. So at least that's good. But this cannot go on for much longer because there's not enough money for the military and definitely in those temporary pockets. And a lot of other federal workers, look, they can maybe go a week or 2 weeks, Sean, but not months. This has real practical effects on families as well as investment. It slows down investment in the economy. Critical government institutions that businesses rely upon can maybe get by a couple weeks, but not much longer. This is having deleterious effects to the American consumer, families. Also, what?
Travel.
Schumer can score some political points?
Of course. Yeah. Airports, right? You got to plan ahead if you want to make sure you get to your flight on time, make sure everything's running smoothly. All right, gentlemen, we do have to leave it there. Kent and John, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
All right, Transportation Secretary, speaking of travel, Sean Duffy's saying this, that he will withhold $40 million from California because it is the only state that is failing to enforce English language requirements for truckers. On the other side of the break, our legal panel weighs in on that. You're watching National Report. We'll be right back.